All right, everybody, let's start. Okay, so hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to episode 25 of the Teen Talks. My name is Radhika Soni, and I started this initiative 4 years ago with the aim of helping high school students like myself navigate the future. When students are faced with the choice of what careers they want to pursue, which subjects they want to study, the question of college, which colleges to apply to, which programs to go for, hearing about other people's experiences with the same issues helps a lot. So I decided to host sessions inviting speakers from diverse backgrounds to discuss their journey of becoming who they are today and how they went through the same process of making these decisions. So far, we have had professionals in law, architecture, sales and marketing, entrepreneurship, sustainability, and many more. We have even hosted sessions with students in college, from students in Stanford, Johns Hopkins University, Ashoka, IIT, Duke University, and more. Today, our guest speaker is Dhruva Jaishankar. He's a former student of Greenwood High International School, and he studied economics in both his undergraduate degree at Warwick University and master's at London School of Economics. So today you will learn all about the college admissions process in the UK and pursuing economics as a career. Once we start off, you may put any questions you have in the chat box, but you can also ask your questions towards the end directly to Dhruva because we will be having a Q&A session. So without any further delay, let's begin.
Great, yeah, thanks for having me. So I guess as a short intro, I went to Greenwood from 5th to 12th, and before that I was in the US, and we moved when I was in 5th grade. I did ICSE from 5th to 10th, and then I moved to the IB curriculum after that. And then from there I did my bachelor's in economics at the University of Warwick, and a master's right after that, last year actually, well this year. And next I'll be working as a pre-doctoral researcher in economics in LA, and that's basically going to lead into a PhD after that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to the next slide.
Sure. So, I guess just talking about high school and the subjects I took. So in ICSE, in 9th and 10th, I chose to do economic applications along with science, English, and math instead of, I think the other options were like computer science and then commercial applications. I did economics in ICSE. That's where I started. And in IB, I wasn't sure if I wanted to switch to economics completely. And so I wasn't really sure about what I wanted to study in college. So I basically decided to keep the engineering option open. And I took math, economics, and physics at the higher level, and English, chemistry, and Spanish at the standard level, which is basically the IB syllabus divides courses into higher level and standard level, and that's basically just the division I took. Is there anything else you want to know about high school?
Okay, so in 10th grade, you chose economic applications, and I think one of the two most common choices are economic applications and computer applications, having done ICSE myself. So how did you decide that you wanted to do that, like eco app?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One, I think for computer science, it's a bit easier to pick it up in like a boot camp or a course outside of school. I don't think you specifically need to take it in like a school or university to learn some programming.
Yeah.
And I kind of just wanted to do something a bit like different out of the ordinary because both my parents are computer engineers. Um, and I also knew that the teacher for economic applications was really good. Like I enjoyed her classes a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much why I took economics in ICSE.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Like doing computers is it's a very different experience to do computers and economics. Actually, the way of thinking is quite different.
Yeah, I
You
think
learn different
yeah
skills.
because sorry yeah because computers is well it seems like it's basically especially programming is kind of logic. I think that actually comes in economics a lot as well because like the point of economics is to try to describe people's behavior. Um, and so you want to make models that are kind of intuitive. And so that's where logic comes in. And it's kind of similar in that way. But yeah, especially in ICSE, it is very different. Yeah, both of them are quite different.
Yeah. Um, so apart from that and IB, you continued, you already explained that you wanted to keep both ways open, like
Yeah, pretty much.
engineering and economics. Um, yeah, okay, then if anybody has any questions, they can write it in the chat. Otherwise, we can move on.
Um, yeah, I can talk about like just like the timeline of important things in high school. I'm not too worried about this because like I'll be talking about UK applications and it's fairly straightforward and the information is quite easily available online as opposed to US college applications. But yeah, so in ninth and 10th, well, in 10th, I did the PSAT pretty much because the school was offering it. So I basically just did that in 10th. And then of course we had the boards. I did a couple of internships after in vacation between 10th and 11th. So between ICSE and IB because we had 4 months of a break between those two. And like, yeah, just kind of feeding into what the whole college application um, profile looked like. I'd also been involved in sports and music. So I was like the hockey vice captain, uh, and I played tennis and tabla outside of that. But yeah, in IB, I did the SAT in 11th grade. Yeah, it must have been. And of course, we had applications towards the like beginning and middle of 12th. So I did apply to the UK and the US, but not to many places in the US. I think I'd had 3 applications for US colleges, including the UC system as one application. Um, but yeah, so that was just applications, and then we had boards, another internship after 11th, and music, like I explained already. But yeah, those were just the important events in high school. I
Okay,
found really
thank you for summarizing that very well. So I have a few questions. Do you think the PSAT is useful?
so it is useful, but not in 10th. You can get a scholarship if you do well in the PSAT. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if that's limited to US citizens or not. But yeah, if you do well in the PSAT in 11th grade, you can qualify for some scholarships, which is obviously a good thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, like in terms of preparing for the SAT, the PSAT is just it's the exact same thing as far as I could tell, except with it was out the PSAT was out of 1520 and the SAT was out of 1600. But I think that was the only real difference between those two.
Okay, so the but if people want to do the PSAT in 11th, then when do you think they would do the SAT? Like both of them are usually I mean, at the SAT, people mostly do it in 11th grade, right?
Yeah,
So would it
it's
be like similar preparation, so it's not actually a problem?
yeah, it's the exact same preparation, and I think both of them happen um, pretty much at the same time, like maybe a few months difference, but yeah, it's the exact same preparation for both of them. Like in terms of what you could do to prepare, I did Khan Academy and I used the Baron stat book, and that was pretty much enough. Uh, yeah,
So what was your score in the SAT?
I got 1530 in the SAT. I think it was 750 in English and 780 in math. Um, the math is a bit unfortunate because it's really easy. So I guess I made some silly mistakes there, but yeah, that was.
Yeah. And so somebody's asked that how was the move from ICSE to IB and how was the experience?
Yeah, it was difficult. I've had lots of conversations with my friends about why it was difficult, but we haven't really been able to pin down what the exact reason was. I think one part of it is that in ICSE there is a lot of like memorization in terms of like especially history and geography, um, and even economics actually had lots of kind of memorization of the textbook. Um, IB, like people say that IB doesn't have that, but it also does. Uh, so yeah, I think like in terms of what you study, I don't think it's that different. Another thing though is that you have to do a lot of these extra um, like add-on things with IB. So uh, you have to do this IA, which is an internal assessment for every subject. And then you also have to do an extended essay. And then there's this thing called, which is like a I think it's 5,000 words of an essay on some subject that you choose. And then there's also this thing called CAS, which is basically SUPW. So you just do some social work and you write reflections about that. Um, and there's also TOK, which is theory of knowledge, which is supposed to be like an um, epistemology class and it's like about philosophy, but it's yeah, you just write another essay about that. So there are a lot of these extra things that you have to do along with the coursework, and 11th and 12th is going to be difficult everywhere. And so it's just a lot of things that you have to do at the same time. So I think if you have good time management skills, and especially if you make the right subject choices, it's like not going to be, it'll be a big shift, but like it'll be manageable. But yeah, the key is to have good time management and to kind of know what you want to do.
Okay, thank you. And about internships, so could you describe what you did in your internships in both the summer after 10th grade and the summer after 11th grade? And how did you get those internships? Because I find that most people, they have the question of how you get internships because
Yeah,
it's pretty difficult to find an internship for a high school student,
it is. Yes.
especially in India.
Mhm. Yeah. So after 10th, so there were two internships. One of them was both of them were basically like short things where you could learn about the business side of the company. Or well, okay, so one of them was learning about the business side of an IT company, which um, I got because my friend's, I think it was a family friend of my friend, and then he basically said, "Why don't you come along as well?" And so I went. So that was nice. There was another one which they had an application. It was like a design firm. they had an application and I applied and got it through that. So those were those two internships. They weren't like, I don't think I actually wrote about them in any of my college essays. I don't, yeah, and like I don't know how much they actually contributed to any of the applications because they were small internships, and especially after 10th, there's very little you can do. Um, but yeah, so those were those two internships. After 11th, I had an internship at IMB in the communications office, um, which was essentially through my mom's friend knew someone who, well, my mom's friend is at IMB, and then she was able to link me up with the communications office. Um, so yeah, the lesson there is that you should really use your contacts because, yeah, I mean, like you said, in high school, you're very unlikely to actually get an internship that's meaningful just based off your qualifications. Uh, yeah, so that was fun. I interviewed lots of startups at their NSR Cell incubator, and basically was able to, yeah, was able to write some blog posts, and it actually is up on the IMD blog. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so
So this is more like economics. Like, was that like would did you write about this internship in your application? It
yeah,
seems a lot more like finance side, not engineering side. So a little bit more related to your prospective major.
yeah. So definitely after 11th, I was pretty sure that I wanted to do economics, mostly because I liked the math, but I just didn't like the physics at all. Um, that we did in IB. But yeah, so this I did write about because I mean IMB is obviously uh, highly renowned, and I was able to actually produce something that like is meaningful in terms of applications and well in term it was meaningful. Like the blog was a nice thing to have, like a tangible result of the work that I did. That's what I want to say. But yeah, so I did write about this, and it was nice because I got exposure to like the business side of what these startups were doing.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't directly related to economics, although I did actually get to sit in on some seminars done by professors. Um, but yeah, it was a big learning experience, so I did write about this in applications.
Okay, thank you. And so first for okay, so someone has asked a question how but I think this is more related to actually studying economics, so we'll answer that question a little later. Yeah, so somebody also had asked that so you applied to both the US and the UK. So could you talk to us about how so how you decided like okay, I want to apply for both, and what exactly um helped make your decision to go to the UK to study?
Yeah. Do I have a slide about this? Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. So I did apply to the US and the UK, but as I said, I only applied to 3 places in the US. I applied to the UK because uh, we actually know someone who went to Warwick, and they said that it was a very nice place to study. And like beyond that, the UK is a lot closer to India, so I can come back a little bit more often. Um, and I mean, oh, and like the biggest thing is that you can get a bachelor's in 3 years, and a master's in 1 year after that. So a 4 year master's was very attractive because in the US you spend 4 years and you get a bachelor's. So yeah, those were basically the reasons why um, I applied to the UK and ended up going to a UK college as well. Um, I applied to the US I don't know if I have a specific reason that I applied to the US. I'm a US citizen, and like I did live there for 9 years, so I guess maybe that's why. But yeah, I mean, there were people who applied to like 10, 15 colleges in the US, and I definitely didn't do that. So I think that answered your question. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about this slide. I don't think anyone has any questions regarding your activities. So yeah, continue about UK applications.
Yeah. So US applications are kind of messy and unclear because it's not. Yeah, it's basically not very clear what they're looking for in terms of applications and who they decide to accept. The UK application process is a lot simpler because um, basically, apart from Oxford and Cambridge, there's one application that you have to do through this thing called UCAS. So with this one application, you get to apply to 5 colleges. You have to submit one personal statement, which goes to all 5 colleges, and that's pretty much it. That's the entire process. So the main thing for UK applications is your predicted scores. Basically, when they read your personal statement, they will also be looking at your predicted scores, and they will give you a conditional offer of admission if they decide to accept you. And the condition is basically that you have to get some specific amount in your final exams, and they actually have this condition on their websites for IB, A levels, and I think APs. For ICSE and CBSE, I don't know if they directly have it on their website, but you can email them and they will probably respond. And if they don't, then you can just like go onto LinkedIn and ask someone from ICSE or CBSE, and they like and just ask them what their condition was, and if like their condition will be the same condition that you will need to meet for your application. So predicted scores matter because if you don't, if your teachers haven't predicted that you'll meet the condition they want, they won't give you an offer. So yeah, it's kind of important to have the predicted score that you need, and also to have like a realistic idea of what you're going to get, so that you will meet the the condition that they say. For Oxford and Cambridge, it's a bit different for undergrad because uh, they they have a separate interview and a test, and like I think you need to. I'm not sure if you need to apply to them directly, but yeah, there is like it is a different process for those two. Also, I know that Cambridge actually needs you to get a rank in like the JEE, which is like a rank that is extremely good. And if you had that rank, you could go to a top IIT college. In which case, I don't really know why you would go abroad for undergrad. Um, but yeah, so those are undergrad UK applications. Um, I don't know if it's relevant for the people who are in this call, but briefly for graduate applications, you apply directly to colleges for masters and PhDs, and it's similar in the sense that they will have a condition that you need to meet in your final year of college. But yeah. Oh, also for economics specifically, for undergrad, the ranking is probably Oxford, Cambridge, LSE as like the first tier, and then the second tier being Warwick, UCL, Bristol, yeah, and then there may be a few others. But so that's definitely the ranking for undergrad. For grad school in economics, LSE is a bit better than Oxford and Cambridge, but all three are still tier 1 colleges, and then it follows pretty much the same after that.
Okay, thank you. So basically, UK is a lot more um, focused on academics, and they have this conditional offer, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you will need to write a personal statement that shows that you're enthusiastic about the subject you're applying for. And like the easiest way to show enthusiasm is to actually have some like a project you've done or some work you've done in your subject, which like would be an internship or I mean the kinds of things that like extracurriculars and the kinds of things that US colleges look for. Um, so in that sense, like they will need you to show enthusiasm for the subject, but yeah, definitely in terms like your predicted scores probably matter as much or more than that for UK applications.
Yeah, I've heard that like it is very like rigid over there. You can't really, once you apply for something, you can't change what you're going to be studying in college. And I guess most of the extracurriculars that people would do would be related to their major.
Yeah, it is pretty rigid. I think it is still possible to switch, especially if you're doing something that like has has two subjects. So, for example, if you apply to a mathematics and economics program, I think you could reasonably switch into like the pure economics program. Um, but yeah, usually it is pretty rigid in the sense that like you'll get in for the major you applied, well, for the course that you applied for, and it won't necessarily be easy to switch what you're studying after you get it.
Okay. So that wasn't really an issue for you, right? Because you had made up your mind
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah. So I decided that I was going to do economics. Yeah, maybe like in hindsight, I probably would have applied um, to the economics and math program, but yeah, I mean it wasn't a big deal. So
So what was the program that you applied for? It was like pure economics. What
yeah,
exactly was it?
so the program I applied for was just the BSc Economics honors. Um, there are other economics courses like economics and industrial organization, mathematics and economics. There's another thing called Morse, which is mathematics, operations, research, statistics, and economics, which which is hard, but it sounds interesting. There's also philosophy, politics, and economics, and there's also e-pace, which is like another politics and economics type thing. But I think that's all at work.
Okay. So I does anybody have any questions about applying to the UK? Actually, could you talk about which colleges you applied to in the US? Like you said you applied for three.
Yeah, so in the US, I applied to the UC system, which was one application. And so that was Berkeley, LA, San Diego, and Davis. Um, so I did get San Diego and Davis. So if I hadn't gone to Warwick or like I hadn't met the condition or something, I would have gone to San Diego. I also applied to Claremont McKenna, um, which is like a liberal arts school. I think they focus on like economics and law and politics and those kinds of things. Um, so yeah, I applied there, and I also applied to U Chicago, where I was deferred. Yeah, those were the three.
Okay. And somebody asked which five colleges in the UK did you apply to?
Yeah, so those five were LSE, Warwick, Bristol, Leeds, and St Andrews. Um, so yeah, one thing is a lot of colleges have the same condition, which is a bit awkward um, to like apply for because if you get into one, you'll get into the other, and so I mean, you
Okay.
already kind of know which one you're going to go to. So I think LSE and UCL have the same condition, which is why I didn't apply to both. Um, uh, yeah. So, but I think Leeds had a slightly lower condition, so that was the safety there.
Okay. Thank you. And if anybody has any more questions, you can ask it now or even later. Let's move on to the next topic. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I could just talk about like mainly the career prospects if you do economics. I think it's important to know, first of all, though, that economics is about like decision making and how people make choices. It's not necessarily about money, which is like that is one part of it, but it's not all of it. And so this is something that I actually thought when I first started in ICSE. So I think it's just important to know that before, if you're considering economics, to study economics in the future. So yeah, I guess like one of the main things you want to know is that you're employable after you go through college. So economics is good in that sense because you have lots of options. So there are typically three main routes after you study economics. So with a bachelor's, you can get into consulting and finance. Um, you can get into most consulting and finance firms. There are a few firms that actually need you to have a master's, but you can definitely do management consulting, economic consulting, and then like the various flavors of finance, like investment banking, management, private equity, and then like asset management, and just all those different parts of finance. You can also get into data science even with a bachelor's if you've kind of taken if you have the right background for it. So if you have a good background in programming and statistics, then it is, and like you have a good portfolio for data science, then it is possible to transition into that kind of role. Tech companies, so like Facebook, Uber, and all like the FANG companies, basically, they actually hire lots of PhD economists. So there was an article in the Economist magazine recently, which actually said that I think a fifth of Harvard's PhD class was hired by Uber. So so yeah, if you want to work as an economist in tech, which is basically you do economics research but also get like tech salaries, then that's an option. You could also, if you're interested in policy, you could go into like the UN, World Bank, IMF, and then government roles. Typically, you need at the very minimum a master's for these roles. I actually know that to work as an economist at the UN or World Bank, you need to have a PhD and then sometimes also work experience. But that's if you want to work as an economist. You could always do a bachelor's in economics, and then if you decide that like public policy is really where your interests lie, then you could do maybe like a master's in public policy or something similar to that, and then transition into a policy tech role there. And then the third option is academia. If you want to become a professor, basically, yeah, clearly you need a PhD for that, and you also need to publish as many papers as you can once you get into the PhD. But yeah, that's probably in a long time for most of you if you're interested.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we can answer the question, how difficult is the maths in undergrad and postgrad economics, undergrad and postgrad economics, and what are the major concepts of maths used?
So in undergrad, it's as difficult as you want it to be, essentially. Um, so if you decide to take a lot of courses that are less mathematical. So math is used a lot in economics. It's I used to think that it was mostly in microeconomics, and actually a lot of pure math is used in microeconomics um, in terms of like making theory, making micro theory, and like just concepts about scarcity and things like that. So yeah, there is actually a lot of pure math that could be used in theoretical micro. Um, in undergrad, like the math you come in contact to is not going to be too difficult. There are some areas of economics, like game theory, where it starts to get a little bit more mathematical, but like typically they're not actually going to um, make you like construct models yourself in an undergrad course. But like that's why I said it's as mathematical as you want it to be. So if you decide to like make if you're writing your dissertation or like a research essay and you decide to construct a model of like allocation or mechanism design, then you could use quite a bit of math in those cases. Postgrad economics uses a lot more math, and it's more difficult because for some reason they don't actually teach you the math you need for postgrad in undergrad. So it's actually a very strange thing. Economics in high school is very different from economics in undergrad, and that's also different from postgrad economics. Like the themes are the same, but it gets more and more mathematical as you go on. But yeah, so postgrad economics is a lot of optimization. So like you'll use a lot of calculus, and and then like linear algebra and matrices. But again, if you decide to go into a more theoretical part of economics, then you'll probably use a bit more than that. So yeah, it is difficult, but it's not like, well, nothing is impossible to do, given that you like math and you're willing to put in the work to understand it. For PhDs, it gets even more mathematical, especially in econometrics, which is basically statistics applied to economics. And so you'll use a lot of like matrix, matrix algebra, calculus, this thing called real analysis, and then I've heard of people using this thing called functional analysis, which I'm not even really sure what it is. But one of the professors described it as impenetrable nonsense. So yeah, it can get pretty mathematical if you want it to be that mathematical. But yeah.
Okay, I hope that answered your question. And we have one more question. What more or less is the average 12th grade cutoff for getting into an Oxbridge or LSE for economics?
So I guess I think, are you talking about ICSE or CBSE? Well, I can. So in IB, basically for LSE, you need to get you need to be predicted a 7 in a 7 in math, and then I think a 6 in your other higher levels.
So actually the person who asked this is in ISC.
Okay, yeah. So I don't actually know what the cutoff is for ISC. Like I said, like I said, for Oxbridge, there are some degrees where you need to get like a very high rank in the JE to even be considered for admission.
But JE is for engineering.
Yeah, it's for engineering. So I'm not entirely sure if it is for economics as well. Yeah, I don't know what the cutoff is for ISC for economics for Oxbridge or LSE for that matter, but it will be equivalent to a 7 in math for IB. So you'll have to get a high math score and pretty high scores all around. Yeah, but like what I'd recommend is sending a message to like the undergraduate office at LSE and or Oxford and Cambridge and asking them like what the cutoff is for ISE or CBSE. And like LinkedIn is very accessible. Like if you message someone on LinkedIn about these kinds of things, they will probably respond. So yeah, that's what I would recommend doing.
Okay, so to add on to this question, is this information available online or on the internet or on their websites?
Not for. I don't think it's available for ISE and CBSE.
Okay.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but like it's worth looking. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
Okay. I hope that answered your question. We have one more question, which is, could you talk a bit more about what you wrote in your personal statement?
Yeah. So in my personal statement, so I had my extended essay in IB, which I decided to do in economics. And so I think I was writing about market structures there. And so I basically just said that like what I was doing, like I found what I was doing interesting, and I thought the results might be interesting, and it was something that I kind of wanted to look at further in college. Um, yeah, so I pretty much wrote about that. I think I also kind of mentioned my like the internship that I did, um, but yeah, really it was just about showing that I was enthusiastic about economics, that I thought it was worth studying, and that I thought it was worth studying and interesting enough for me to do.
So I have a follow-up question. So basically, um, I've heard like in US colleges, they'll have this essay where you write about why you want to attend that specific college. And in that, they have a lot of like small details, like that's a very research intensive essay. So is that something that's there expected in the personal statement?
So it's not, because you send the same personal statement to all 5 colleges you apply to.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so you can't really write about a specific college in the statement. Some advice that I heard though was that like you should try to secretly hint about some aspects of the colleges you're applying to in your essay. But like I seriously doubt that that would make any difference. Um, yeah, unless like if every college you're applying to is in London, then maybe you could write about like how being in like a cultural center like London would enhance your studies of whatever degree you're doing. But like even that, I wouldn't spend any significant amount of time on in the essay because they have a word limit or like a character limit or something like that. So it should really be about your enthusiasm for the subject.
do you remember what the limit was?
Uh, I think it was 1,000 words. Actually, that seems a bit long. I'm not entirely sure what it was. Um, yeah,
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure people can find that on the
yeah.
internet.
It's everything for the UK is very accessible on the internet. Like they're quite clear about what they want from you in terms of applications, which is nice.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so 4,000 characters. That's what it is.
4,000.
Yeah.
4,000 characters.
Yeah.
Okay. So space bars and full stops, commas, every.
Uh, I am not sure. It says like 550 to 1,000 words. Oh yeah, with spaces. So yeah, with spaces.
Yeah. Okay. So I think to wrap up my side, I would ask, what do you think you should have done differently throughout this process, and any advice for us high school students?
Yeah. Well, for me specifically, I think so. For me specifically, I'm planning to apply to a PhD in economics, and so because that requires a lot more math, I would have. I think I would have benefited from doing a course like mathematics and economics. More than just pure economics, although I did actually tailor my degree to be quite to be on the more mathematical side. Um, but uh, those are all not so important because like you can always make up those things. One thing is that like I'm actually quite happy that so I said that Warwick was like a tier 2 college after LSE Oxbridge. I'm actually quite happy that I went to Warwick. Like I don't have regrets about basically not working harder in high school because I think going to Warwick really like especially Warwick, you will be rewarded for the effort you put in. Um, but like in other, I know that in like Oxbridge LSE, like you can put in as much effort as you want, but sometimes they'll just like they won't you'll like still get a bad score or they'll just make the exam too hard and like you'll face those kinds of things. So I'm actually quite happy with like the decisions I made until now. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'd say about that. Advice for high school students is quite broad, but like again in terms of like I guess if you're thinking about trying to get into the best college you can and like being successful that way, um, it like college is a building and it's not gonna matter that much which building you go to. Like you can always make changes later on if you feel that you're not as successful as you want to be. Um, so yeah, like put in the effort that like you're capable of doing, but don't like kill yourself trying to get into a better college than well, trying to get into the best college because it's really it doesn't make that much of a difference at the end of the day. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. So now the audience can ask questions directly. You can even unmute your microphones and ask Dhruva. Or if you don't want to do that, you can always write it in the chat directly to me or in the chat to everybody. Okay, I don't think anyone has any more questions, so we'll wrap up. So thank you so much, Dhruva, for this informative and insightful session. I learned a lot today about the UK admissions process, career prospects in economics, and a lot of other things. And I really appreciate the time and effort you took out to do this for us, especially since you're also not that well. So get well soon.
Thanks.
Thank
Happy
you
to be
so
here.
much. Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined in today for the 25th episode of the Teen Talks. I'm really grateful for your continued support, and I hope you all learned something valuable today. So thank you, Dhruva, once again, and thank you to the audience. Have a nice day, everybody. And the recording will be shared soon. So if you're not on the Teen Talks group, you can please message me and we can add you to the group, and a recording can be shared.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Bye.
Bye.